Hi everyone, it's Nikki here and welcome to episode 15. Yes, I am getting closer and closer to the end of the 24. For those of you who've been following along at home, I promised myself on the 1st of January 2026 I would do 24 vlogs before the end of the year. So here I am with episode 15. So a week ago I was really sort of like I'd set out a plan when I first started of all the topics I wanted to talk about, and as this has evolved, I sort of wanted to get a little bit of feedback from people what you wanted me to talk about in one of my episodes. So I had some really good feedback on LinkedIn, but I also spoke to my team about it, and I said, what do they think I should share with the world? And it was interesting. Natalie from our accounts, lovely Nat, who was on I think episode 1 or 2. So she said to me, Mama, please share some of the stories that you share with the team, the little lessons that you share through stories. So one of the things that I try to use a lot of stories sometimes to explain responsibility, accountability, and for everyone taking their share in the business. So the first story I always talk to people about is a little story. I'm sure I read it somewhere. It was about a little mouse. They were all living on this in the farmhouse amongst all the other farmer animals. And one night it overheard the farmer and the farmer wife saying, "Oh, she was going to go out the next day. The farmer's wife was going to go out the next day and buy a rat trap because she wanted to catch and kill the rat." So the little rat or mouse went off to the farmyard animals and said to them all, "Oh, I'm really stressed, I'm really worried," and said to the cow and to the pig and to the sheep, "Oh, I'm really worried, the farmer's wife's going to go tomorrow and get a rat trap, and my life is in danger." And the cow said, "Well, sorry, that's your problem, doesn't really affect me." And then said to the chicken, and the chicken said, "Oh, sorry, your problem doesn't really affect me," so on and so forth. So same with the sheep and same with the pig. And so the rat was really, or mouse was really upset about this all, and no one seemed to care about their well-being. Anyway, the next day, the farmer's wife, Julie, went off to, say, to Bunnings or the hardware store and bought a rat trap and set that rat trap up. In the middle of the night, the next night, the rat trap goes off. And what had happened is a snake had slithered in and set off the rat trap. And that snake was obviously very angry. It then bit the farmer's wife. The farmer's wife got really, really sick. So the farmer, he went out and he killed the chicken to make some chicken broth or something to feed the wife, who was very, very poorly. And unfortunately, she passes away. So he then went and killed the sheep and the pig, and to feed all the guests that came to the funeral. And then, because the funeral cost him lots and lots of money, he ended up selling the cow to an abattoir to pay for all the costs. And there the mouse was left, there the farmer's wife had gone and all the animals had gone. So the moral of the story is when you think it's not your problem, it is your problem. So have some empathy for other people, and things that you think that's directly not affecting you, it can indirectly affect you. So for me, it's all about interconnected working together, teamwork, etc. So that was one of the little stories I always like to share. The other one is about the greedy little monkey. So there's a jar of nuts, and the little greedy monkey goes and he puts his hand in and he's trying to grab as many nuts as he can, and then he can't get his hand out the door. And because he won't let go of some of the nuts and take some out, he ends up dying of starvation because his hand gets trapped in and he doesn't want to move. So the moral of that story is that, when you're trying to especially in our workplace, we use it a lot, that if you're trying to take too much from the company, like you're stretching out your hours to look after yourself, it's like putting your hand in and trying to take all the nuts for now. You need to make sure that you look after your job and you respect your job and the hours, and not trying to take it all at once. Make sure you take enough that you can survive and enjoy those nuts, but there's also some leftovers, so that that you can sustain yourself. So the story is not to be too greedy, not to think just about yourself, to make sure that it happens exactly with the cucumbers. If someone comes in and is picking a little bit small because they're thinking about their own loan or their money they're going to make, they're actually taking all the nuts today and not actually leaving some of that fruit to actually ripen and get a little bit bigger for tomorrow. I also talk about the story that these beautiful big commercial airliners and airplanes, they don't crash because one thing goes wrong. They crash because there are a number of safety things have been missed. So this is really important when you're talking about quality and when you're talking about process and procedures. It's really important. People don't skip the checklist. They don't, like when a pilot gets into the seat, he's checking off, oh, have I put the fuel in? Have I done this? Have I done that? He's doing all the checks. And if they miss those checks are in place to keep the plane up in the air. So, and the other thing is cross-checking. You know, when you watch air hostesses, they cross-check that they've closed the doors. They cross-check each other. It's not because they think the other person's doing a bad job. It's just sometimes things fail. So those are the little stories that I share with the team to try to get our lessons across. There's many more. We've also picked some up from, like Patrick always says, you know, if you give someone a finger, they sometimes take your arm. So it's another one. It's quite graphic in the sense that you don't want to be abused or taken advantage of. So, you know, sometimes, you know, as they say, you know, count when you shake hands with someone, make sure you got all your fingers left on your hand. So that's, you know, we have all these little funny stories, and we use a lot of storytelling, and I tell people stories about success, about people doing really well, about people who've actually fallen off or done bad things, and then sort of come back onto the straight and narrow again, because we're all human after all. We all make mistakes, and sometimes you need someone to put out the hand to lift you up, to give you a second chance, you know. But what do they say, you know, once bitten, twice shy. Once I've given someone 1 or 2 chances, then, you know, the patience is probably not there as much. So episode 15, there you go, little stories, and what stories that we tell here with our team to explain and get the points across. I'd be interested to know if you use little stories like that to teach your kids or to explain theories or philosophies to your team. So drop them in the comments below if you use storytelling as well for your training. Thanks, and over and out from Glasshouse 2.